What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about the strange reason why the US owes London 12.5 million pounds. This is the first I'm hearing about this. I was scrolling on YouTube and randomly this video title comes up and I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, you don't say. We we owe London 12.5 million pounds. Okay. Didn't know that. And I want to find out. It got my attention. I was like, is this still a thing? I looked at when this video was published, and apparently it was about 2 years ago at this point, so I don't know, maybe we paid it off, probably not, judging by the way things go these days. But I'm interested. There must be some kind of story behind this, some fun little story, maybe not so fun story, when you owe someone 12.5 million pounds. Maybe it's not so fun. I don't know, but let's find out. Let's take a look.
The United States and the United Kingdom have a complicated relationship. They used to be united, but then colonial Americans felt derided and decided they'd rather be divided. The UK felt blindsided and cried that being divided was misguided, so their two lopsided armies collided, people died, and in time the United Kingdom abided, and two the states united.
Why? This whole video isn't gonna be like in rhymes, right? A long poem, or you know what? If it is, fine. That's just impressive.
Independence was provided. In time, tension subsided, and the two decided to become allied and provided ambassadors who have, in each other's capitals, resided. But recently, the United States has derided the United Kingdom's prided legal system and thus has been chided. Why did they do it? A reason was provided, but whether it's compelling is undecided. Why did they make the whole intro into rhyme? Unclear, but it was obviously misguided.
What? I mean, it was impressive, but is there really, was it just random? Was it just to hook us in? Because I think it actually kind of worked.
And it took like a really, really long time. Man, seriously, why did I do that? Well, anyways, now that I'm loose of the news of Dr. Seuss, let's talk about London's congestion charge. From 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., if you...
Congestion charge. Does the fact that we owe London $12 million or pounds have like a name? Is that the name of it? Since when do charges have names?
Of Dr. Seuss, let's talk about London's congestion charge. From 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., if you want to drive into London's congestion charge zone, which includes all this, you've got to fork over 15 pounds, effective every day except Christmas, when it's waived in honor of the wise men's famous gifts of frankincense, myrrh, and toll exemptions.
Okay, never mind. It's the name of this zone. Okay, I need to listen to that again. I've never, I don't know much about London, let alone ever heard about this particular zone where it's very busy, apparently.
From 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., if you want to drive into London's congestion charge zone, which includes all this, you've got to fork over 15 pounds, effective every day except Christmas, when it's waived in honor of the wise men's famous gifts of frankincense, myrrh, and toll exemptions. This, of course, raises the question, but why? Why would London charge people to drive on its roads? That's what roads are for. That would be like charging people for sunshine or fresh air or basic healthcare. And
I mean, is it? Because, I mean, it's called the congestion charge, which makes me think it's very busy. Is it a charge just to deter people from driving, so more people walk or take another route, so that people aren't sitting in traffic for 3 hours? Is that any part of this?
who would do that? The idea is to reduce noise and air pollution, as well as to raise money for London's public transit system. In economics, this might be called a syntax, which is different from syntax, which is how you order your sentences good, and different from sim tax, which is when you charge Sims characters a tariff for transporting goods from Sim City to Sim Isle, and different from simp tax, which is what a premium Snapchat subscription is called. The idea behind a syntax is that the government taxes things it wants to discourage, i.e. Sims, thus making it more expensive for people to do or buy those things.
Yeah, so pretty much it is pretty much in line with they charge you money if they want to stop you from doing that thing.
And thus reducing consumption of those bad things. This is why countries often tax tobacco and alcohol so heavily. They want people to use them less because it turns out tobacco and alcohol are bad for you. Who knew? Also, governments want money because they're greedy pigs who want to do gross, exorbitant things like provide people healthcare and education. Blah. Anyways, places like London noticed their streets were way too crowded, making the city too loud, too slow, too smoggy, and far too British. To solve three of those four problems,
Man, oh my gosh. This guy really doesn't pull any punches, does he?
loud, too slow, too smoggy, and far too British. To solve three of those four problems, they decided to reduce the number of cars on the roads by charging people to drive on them. There are some exemptions to the rule. Cars that meet certain environmental standards can drive free. If you live in or near the area, you get a 90% discount. If you're an NHS patient who is too ill to travel by public transit, you get a refund. And if you're the Queen, technically there's no exemption, but what are they gonna do, sue you?
Right, exactly. So there are a couple of exemptions for this. I'm still honestly curious as to when and what part of this has anything to do with the United States, and how London charging its own citizens a tax for driving during a certain time in a certain place, how that somehow relates back to the US owing 12.5 million pounds. I am very interested to understand how that happened.
You're the Queen. Your face is literally on the pieces of paper they want from you. But you know who isn't exempted? Foreign diplomats, including US diplomats, except the US diplomats don't really see it that way. To understand why, you have to understand a bit about diplomatic immunity, which is different from democratic disunity, which is what America has now, which is different from plutocratic community, which is what rules America.
Oh, I feel like this guy never rhymes like this. It's not like it's not a big part of his channel, but I chose the one video where he's making it he's going out of his way to rhyme everything for comedy. And, it's not bad, but I thought he would have given up on it by now.
Now, which is different from diplostatic rotundity, which are two words I just made up. Under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations of 1961 and the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations of 1963, diplomats are exempted from, among other things, paying taxes. And so, the United States' diplomats refuse to pay the congestion charge as they say it's a tax. London disagrees.
Ah. Yes, in true American fashion, our diplomats came over, started probably using this road or a tax like it, and just refused to pay it, and it's sounding like they managed to do this so much that we racked up a 12 million pound bill over the course of how long? It's what's the penalty or the tax evasion here? If it's 15 pounds at a time, did they violate this law like thousands and thousands of times?
And says it's not a tax, it's a charge, so they do have to pay. But then the US says, no, and then London says, actually yes. And then the US says, well, actually no. And basically things have gone back and forth that way for years, in what is, as far as I know, the first time that the US and UK have ever gotten into a dispute about taxes, ever. Now, normally, if someone refuses to pay money they owe the government, whether it's a tax or a charge, they'll be sued or prosecuted. But diplomatic immunity also prevents foreign countries from prosecuting or suing diplomats. For anything. Like, literally anything. A diplomat could murder someone or commit arson or say that Friends is better than Seinfeld, and they couldn't be prosecuted unless the diplomat's home country waived their immunity.
So, even though diplomats from America were coming over and not paying this little charge or tax, whatever you want to call it, we weren't paying it to prove a point or something. We had diplomatic immunity, so they couldn't just throw them in jail or force them to pay or do some kind of penalty right then and there. But I'm guessing we still, somewhere on some document, in some way, on a record, owe a total bill of like 12.5 million. Okay.
It depends a little on who the person is. There are different levels ranging from full immunity from civil and criminal charges for top diplomats, to immunity from everything except civil charges for top staff, to functional immunity for low-level staff, which only covers crimes committed in the scope of their job. This is part of why diplomats join pigeons as the scourge of cities like New York, DC, and London, because they refuse to pay parking tickets, and there's not a damn thing you can do to make them pay them.
Yeah, this is like, at least the way this narrator phrases it makes it does sound pretty petty. Like, if you're representing an entire nation, especially one as wealthy as the United States, can't you just pay? Can't you use like a government credit card or something and just pay the little charge or the toll or the parking ticket? Even if technically, in their mind, the law says they don't have to, which is up for debate apparently. I don't know. This seems a little petty, yeah, to not pay it.
But hey, they're still not as bad as pigeons. Pigeons don't pay parking tickets either, plus they poop on cars. Though technically diplomats could also poop on cars and not get prosecuted. Right now, about 3/4 of embassies pay London's congestion charge, but the remaining quarter that don't, a group led by the US, Japan, Nigeria, Russia, and India, now owe over £100 million.
Oh my gosh, so of all the diplomats from all over the world that visit London, 75% of them tend to just pay the charges and the toll. And the US is part of that 25% with a couple other places. Hold on.
US, Japan, Nigeria, Russia, and India.
Like 4 other nations or so that don't pay the tax. What is wrong with us? It's so 12 million pounds is a ton of money to a person or business. But to the entire nation of America, it would be nothing for us to pay back 12.5 million pounds. Have we really not paid this? This was 2 years ago. Maybe the bill has gotten bigger by now. And just out of principle, we refuse. It's funny, but I absolutely believe that this is a thing.
Now owe over £100 million, with US alone at over 12 million, and
Yeah.
London just doesn't have a lot of options to force them to cough up the dough. Recently, they've said they want to take it up with the International Court of Justice, which would be a great idea if what the International Court of Justice said actually mattered. Their only real option is to declare diplomats persona non grata and send the diplomats home, but that feels like a pretty extreme move.
Huh. So the UK can't actually legally force us to pay, but they could if they wanted to be kind of, let's call it, aggressive about it. They could force diplomats from the US to go home. Legally, they could be like, okay, you're not going to pay? Go home. But that, I agree, that would kind of be over the top, and we're probably trying to do important meetings when diplomats come to London and whatnot, so it really is more trouble than it's worth to send them packing or to force them to try to force them to pay this. This is funny. This is just a funny little story.
After all, what's £12 million between friends? £12 million is a lot of money. But you know what isn't? $14.79, which is what it costs to get an annual subscription.
Okay, this is just an ad. Okay, that was a fun little story. This was by Half As Interesting. I gotta give that a like. Let's take a little look at the comments. Why not? Apparently US diplomats and their spouses are also exempt from driving on the left side of the road, even when it leads to fatal accidents. There's no way that's true. And if it was, I'm guessing most US diplomats choose to not drive on the right side of the road, if not for their own safety. I love how it's definitely illegal. They just can't do anything. Exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking. It's just a funny situation and kind of petty. The UK, you have to pay the taxes I want you to pay. The US, didn't we have this argument before? Yes, exactly. The US really doesn't like paying other nations' taxes and tolls and other stuff, and we are willing to go to way overly extreme measures not to, apparently. The United Kingdom is suing the United States in international court over unpaid parking tickets. Not over unpaid parking tickets, but essentially, yes. Essentially something that amounts to unpaid parking tickets. And maybe a few unpaid parking tickets. Apparently some diplomats don't pay that. I mean, come on, I don't care if you technically don't have to as a diplomat. You are exploiting the law at that point. You're exploiting it by going to another country. They're welcoming you. The UK's letting our diplomats in to have a nice time, and then we don't pay their parking tickets, even though if you got one, you probably violated a parking law. And you're just like, no, I'm a diplomat. I don't have to. That's just rude. That's just rude. Even I think that's rude. Oh, anything else here? Not even sure this is an educational channel or just stand-up comedy. I know. This guy was going out of his way. I mean, I think this is almost like a rap channel at this point, or like a poem channel. He was just rhyming. And there's comedy, and under all that was a tiny little educational story, apparently. When people look up passive-aggressive on the internet, there's a picture of this channel. Yeah, this was pretty passive-aggressive in some spots. I live in D.C., so this is in the U.S., and diplomats always break traffic laws. It's really annoying. Oh, like diplomats from other countries come to the U.S. and break our traffic laws and don't pay. Wow, okay. The diplomatic immunity thing extends into the US as well. Probably a lot of countries. So everyone's just going to everyone else's country. And if you're a diplomat, you're just everyone all at the same time just doesn't pay the parking fines and taxes in other countries. It's kind of silly. Either everyone has to or everyone doesn't. And it looks like we all went with not to. Not. Anything else? Not really. Just some people... A lot of people commenting on the sassiness of this narrator in the channel, which I agree with, but I also like it. I like it a lot. I enjoyed this story. I was like, is this going to be an uncomfortable story if we owe London and the UK 12.5 million pounds? Is it because we did something horrible? What? But it turns out that this is mostly not... It's serious, but in a way not as serious as I might have thought. It's petty, and apparently happens to everyone. So I don't know what to think of this. It almost sounds like no one's ever going to pay this bill, and we probably have similar things going on here where other nations aren't paying us. And there's just this weird, mystical, mysterious mountain of debt floating in the sky that is never going to get paid, apparently. So, yeah, interesting stuff, very interesting, fun story. Anyway, if you found this video fun and interesting as well, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to the UK, things in Great Britain, the UK, culture there, stuff I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.